Hello, everyone. This is Tasha, and you're having conversations with Miss Reed. Excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat. So, this is the continuation of our series that we was trying to put together for the systems that fail us. And so tonight, I'm going to be discussing police brutality. It's just going to be me, guys, because Stacy is trying to catch up on so much stuff that he's been getting into. So we know how that is. And poor little Terry is recovering from the flu, guys. So let's keep him in our prayers. A lot of people, I've never had the flu before. A lot of people compare it to having COVID. So I'm like, goodness gracious, I've had COVID. So those people that had the flu had to go through what I was going through with COVID. And this is prior to me getting the vaccinations and stuff. So now that I'm fully vaccinated, I feel a little bit more confident. But when I did get COVID, oh my God, it was insane. So people are still out here, just still be diligent with wearing your mask and hand sanitizing, and just trying to stay away from as many people as possible in a large setting. So we had, it was just scary. It was scary dealing with that. And I don't know how many days that I went with just like cleaning this house with so much Clorox and like destroying my fingers and hands out, even like how it would just like eat through the gloves because I was using so much. I was just so paranoid when it first happened. So it was ridiculous, guys. So anyways, back to the show. So police brutality according to Britannica, and as always, I'm going to link all the references into the show notes so that you can read on a lot of these cases that I know I didn't hear about, or it wasn't even big in the news and stuff. So according to Britannica, it is the unwarranted or excessive and often illegal use of force against civilians by U.S. police officers. Forms of police brutality have ranged from assault and battery, example, beatings, to mayhem, torture, and murder. Some broader definitions of police brutality also encompass harassment, including false arrests, intimidation, and verbal abuse, among other forms of mistreatment. Police brutality has been ongoing as far back as the late 19th and 20th centuries, according to Britannica. Some examples are poor and working class whites who express frustration over discriminatory policing in northern cities. Jewish and other immigrants from southern and eastern Europe also complain of police brutality against their communities. In the 1920s, many urban police departments, especially in large cities such as New York and Chicago, used extralegal tactics against members of the Italian immigrant communities in efforts to crack down on organized crime. In 1943, officers of the Los Angeles Police Department were complicit in attacks on Mexican Americans by U.S. servicemen during the so-called Zoot Suit riots, reflecting the department's history of hostility towards Hispanics, also considered Latinos. Regular harassment of homosexuals and transgender persons by police in New York City culminated in the 1969 in the Stonewall riots, which were triggered by a police raid on a gay bar. And in the aftermath of the 2001 September 11 attacks, Muslim Americans began to voice complaints about police brutality, including harassment and racial profiling. And I do remember, seeing that when 9/11 happened and how those people, like the Muslim communities, were being attacked. And it's almost like what we're going through now with so many of the Asian communities being attacked because they feel like they started the coronavirus. So It is just so disheartening that we have so many people, and it's not just the police officers, it's regular people out here that are so angry and hold so much hatred in their hearts and stuff. When you know, me being a black woman, just how it hurts to see how they talk about us and how people feel about us. So it just cannot be easy. So when I think about police brutality, the first thing, of course, comes to my mind is Rodney King and George Floyd. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've seen the whole Rodney King, like so many of you all. We've seen the videos. We've seen how they beat him and how he was just how it was like traumatizing just to watch it. But I have yet to listen to the George Floyd tape. I know, from social media and other people that I know that have listened to it and stuff, you get inserts of what he was saying and his pleas while he was being held down like that. And I just can't do it. I can't listen to it. I accidentally, because I like watching the crime shows and I listen to a lot of the podcasts. I accidentally one day was watching one of the crime shows off of Hulu, and it was the Arbery case, and I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for what I saw. He was jogging, and then you see when he shot, and it just bothered me so bad. I'm like, I don't want to see nobody's child dying that way. It was just terrible. So those are the first things that come to mind when I think of police brutality, like immediately off my mind. And it's so sad that there's so many stories out here that are not being talked about, or we just keep seeing it over and over and over again. And I know it sounds like a broken record, because everybody who is actually living in this day and age now have experienced this, as far as like seeing things play out on TV, not having any justice after knowing that this stuff happened. After I watched the what it was called, goodness gracious, the something 5, and I'm sorry for not remembering right now at the top of my head, about the 5 guys that were accused of killing the girl? I'm going to have to look it up and link it in there, because that was something that I really was, it took me a long time to watch because I was afraid to watch. And the last guy's story, it broke me down. I cried through that whole thing. It was crazy. But I will link that information in the show notes, so that whoever haven't even seen the documentary or even heard about the case could at least like read upon it, or look it up and stuff. I think it was playing on Netflix, and I watched it off of Netflix. It took me a while to watch it, because I didn't want to to tell you the truth. I didn't want to, but I was able to watch it up until we got to the 5th guy, and his story was the most heartbreaking to me, and I was crying throughout that whole thing. So we're gonna continue. So the first story we have is on the 6 policemen from the Northeast Rand Dog Unit who set their dogs on 3 suspected illegal immigrants, allowing the animals to attack the 3 men as the officers shouted racial insults. The incident was caught on video and televised nationally by the South African Broadcasting Corporation on November 7, 2000, causing widespread outrage. All 6 policemen were ultimately sentenced to jail terms of between 4 and 5 years each. The footage captured members of the Northeast Rand Dog Unit, named as inspectors Christo Koch and Eugene Truter, and Sergeant Cobus Smith, Dino Guito, and Robert Henson, and Nicholas Lobzer, relentlessly encouraging the dogs to be as violent as possible with the victims. I watched this, y'all, and I was like, I'm already scared of dogs. And I can just imagine what they was thinking when they were being attacked like that. The victims pleaded for their lives with the policemen, who hurled racial abuse at the men as they punched, kicked, and slapped them. The officers stamped on the men's necks and faces as the animals tore into their flesh. In one section, it appeared that a piece of a dog's tooth had come loose and was embedded in the flesh of one of the victims. 2 Alsatians, that's a dog, I had to look it up because I'm like, what kind of dog is that? Which were joined by another large dog, which appeared to be a crossbreed, attacked the men with such ferocity and strength that they were able to lift one of the men up in their jaws from his crouching position. The dogs were also able to drag the men along the ground. When the animals were finally called off, the police officers lined up the 3 injured men and assaulted them further. I watched that mess and was like, "Ooh, Lord have mercy." It was a lot. So again, I am going to link, I was able to watch it on YouTube, so I will link all of that in the show notes. So we all know that, police brutality is just not towards people of color. And there are some cases that I did find where white people were also mistreated. And one case was on a female. And, unfortunately, I won't be able to, because we just do audio only, and we're not doing this on visual as far as the podcast. But I am going to link it in the show notes so you can see the photos that we obtained. But I was shocked. I just was like, my God. So this story is on Angela Garbarino. In 2008, Angela was badly beaten by a police officer in Shreveport, Louisiana. The 42-year-old Caucasian woman had become angry while being detained in a police booking room. She was drunk and began arguing with a male officer. He turned off the camera in the room. When it came back on, she was lying in a pool of blood on the floor. Afterwards, Garbiano settled out of court and the officers were reinstated. They have a picture of what she looked like prior to that camera going off. And then they have a picture of her what she looked like after. They beat the mess out of this girl. That was crazy. So the next story is on Christopher Harris. In 2009, a sheriff's deputy slammed a 29-year-old white male into a wall for the wrong reason. The Matthew Paul mistook Christopher Harris for an assault suspect, leaving Harris with life-threatening injuries. The victim was left in a coma with catastrophic brain damage and spinal cord injuries. Paul was not charged at the time. Harris's wife and parents later filed a $425 million suit against King County, accusing the sheriff's department of using excessive force. The guy was laying in the bed, fully paralyzed. It's just insane of the type of brutality because you have a gun and you are in a badge that prevents, anyone of really wanting to fight back because of what could happen to them if they do. And my thought process is, where's the humanity? So it's one thing when you're trying to defend yourself, because there are several other cases that I have that goes into the next episode that we'll be doing. And it was just so heartbreaking of how different that one race is compared to another. And I know we don't want to just go around and just saying that it's a race thing and just continuing to use that. But when I'm doing the research, it's just so much. And you look at it and just get angrier and angrier, just seeing like how one race of people are treated versus another race. It is just so terrible. It's just terrible. So that will be going into our disparities episode. So I wanted to get this out so that we can continue on talking about this. I do have some plan where we're trying to coordinate with friends of ours that are police officers, because we do want to acknowledge the fact that they have a job to do. They have to get out and do a job just like you and I and the rest of us. And I know the goal at the end of the day is to come back home that night. And I dated a cop, and that's exactly what he used to tell me. His thought process is that he want to come home every night. And that was his main thing. But he was not so excessive with this. He wasn't an aggressive person when it came down to, he was forceful, but he wasn't like throwing people all over the place just because. He had humanity. And my questions, and I have so many for them, and I'm sure they won't be able to answer them all, but my thing is like, why is there a difference? Why? If two people are committing the same crime and acting the same way, why is it that one is being treated fair when the other one is just being beat down to the ground? Why? So we will continue these things, and we'll go into it, and hopefully we can get these scheduled with these two officers or a couple officer friends that we do have, and hopefully we can coordinate with them so that they can answer some of the questions that we do have. So I'm going to go ahead and end this, and hopefully you guys are enjoying some of my not Game of Thrones, because that is over with, but the House of the Dragon, I am also reviewing that, and I will be uploading those as well. So we always end with a quote, so I'm going to end with two quotes on this one. The first one is, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, and that is by Nelson Mandela. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And that's by our former president, Barack Obama. So guys, have a beautiful Sunday, and I will talk to you later.